Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Conversation. Today we are joined by Tom Lorimer. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Ricardo. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Tom, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure. So I'm Tom. I'm the founder of the Passion Lab, which is a London-based AI machine learning laboratory. We design and develop bespoke machine learning solutions for businesses of all shapes and sizes. I'm a born and bred Londoner, and love this city, albeit the UK is going through a bit of a market correction, put it that way. But things are hopefully going to gradually look up, and all good.
You're one of the few, not few, but in London there's always, I think it's 50-50, isn't it? And people actually being born in London and then elsewhere outside of the UK and also outside of
Yeah, it's a wonderful melting pot of all sorts of people, and for that reason I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. And I think it's rare in terms of like global cities to have that level of diversity and cohesion as well on the whole. And I think it's I love the city. It's also got an abundance of opportunity in the sense that, again, for all its challenges, it has it's a very mature economy and there are lots of often service-led businesses of all shapes and sizes, and you look in the right places, there's a hungry ambition, maybe not quite like the Americans or the New Yorkers, but there's a hungry ambition, I think, here still in London.
Yeah. Well, at least we know that London does get its sleep. Unlike New York, right? They never stop sleep for any sleep. Because in London, people actually do go home and get a good night rest every once in a while. So,
sometimes, every once in a while, not all the time, but yeah.
All right, Tom, tell me a bit more about Passion Lab and how you came to be, the CEO.
Sure.
But also, how do you get to that point?
Well, let me start that way around then. So I've done various things in my career. I'm in my early 30s, for full transparency, and first cut my teeth back when I was 18 years old in recruitment, in headhunting. He was my first sort of mentor, a man called John Gardner. He gave me my first job at a company called NBI, and I was a research associate there, and I was basically, told to go and potentially, find some, interesting candidates for various different roles, big roles. But it was a great first foray into business and out of school, and it was a small enough business that you got to sense that, of all the different moving parts and the energy involved in a kind of a high growth business like that one. Anyway, they actually sponsored me initially through university and through Bristol University. I wasn't very good at watching daytime TV though, so at any sort of free moment, I was looking at new ways or new ideas or new businesses to launch, and got myself quite immersed into the whole events and artist management space. Managed and ran or set up a company called Foundations Presents, which ran basically nights and the likes over the course of 3 years, and we did pretty well for what was essentially a team of nightclub promoters, giving it a good shot. I think at one point we ran 27 nights in a month and turned over some pretty good cash. So it was a good, again, first foray into kind of things. It was. But yeah, left Bristol with a first in politics, and then decided, as you would, to with the support with two others, launched an ice cream business called Pops, and myself and two others, James and Harry, they'd spearheaded the idea, and they needed someone to come on board and lead a lot of the sales and the commercial side. And so I came on board in 2014 as a sort of founding partner of Pops. And again, that was a bit of a step change from from nightclubs to ice cream, and we ended up, in the course of 4 years, we sold, I think, just shy of 9 million ice lollies and ice creams. We did a JV with Diageo, created a Pimm's and Gordon's Gin and Tonic ice lolly, and we had an office in Melbourne and in Ibiza, where else, and obviously, and in London, and that was the step up from that, from foundations through to pops. That was a step up. We were now kind of in the sort of so-called, I don't know, teenage years or whatever, trying to work things through and work things out. And then I left in 2014 following our exit to a contract caterer called G. Bruce, and we then moved, and then I got headhunted actually to join as a co-founder of another consumer lifestyle business called Oto, and I have spent the last 4 years, from about 2018 to 2022, building that business, and again, some great successes in there, loads of learning curves, and loads of learnings, and it was a fascinating journey, that one. And in late 2022, I decided to step back from that and go into something totally fresh. I wanted to try something really new and really challenge myself. And I'd spent 10 years in the kind of consumer brand space. It's tough, it's a hustle. Consumer market was fickle. Brexit didn't help. COVID certainly didn't help. And so I was wanting to try something new and have some real intention in my next move. In the past, I'd fallen from one thing to the next. One conversation led to another, and then there I was, in the business. Whereas I wanted to stand back and go, okay, what does the next 10 years look like? What the next 20 years look like? And have real intention in my actions. So actually, for the first part of 2023, I took a 4-month sabbatical. One of the best things I've done. And didn't go traveling, but really tried to use that time as constructively as possible, and try and do something really, really worthwhile with that time. And in that period, it was just that the whole applied generative AI boom began to really take, really start emerging. And it was at that point that, when we started seeing it very much on the newspapers and on TV, that I realized that, this was the space that I really wanted to go into. So spent the best part of the last 18 months, combination of various different, I went back to university, did a kind of executive management program in the sort of the foundations of AI, machine learning. Did recently one with Duke University around the sort of AI product market product specialization. And then have spent the last year, from about August 2023, commercializing a machine learning research lab called Pearsos AI, and had some great successes with that. But more recently, that was tied to a venture studio, and more recently was keen to do my own thing, and so subsequently have launched the Passion Lab, which is a sort of AI and machine learning laboratory, designing, developing tools for different businesses, mainly kind of medium-sized to small-sized businesses, scale-ups looking to kind of adopt AI. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer to your short question, but hopefully gives you a sense of why I'm here and how I got here.
It's great, and it actually gives me a lot of follow-up questions too. Now I'm just curious on one thing, because you've been in business for quite some time. You've grown business successfully, and now you're building something in AI that actually helps other businesses to be successful as well. What are the key features that you need to implement in order to make a business successful? Because you've done that all in the past, right?
I've done it in various different ways in the past, and there are so many different business books, and founders have written so much about various different approaches. Of course, there is no one best approach, but I mean, my personal view is, yeah, it of course takes grit, determination, and resilience. Goes without saying, to really get moving and get pointing in the right direction. It takes conviction. I think you've got to have a sense of like, you know what, we can do this. We've really got to do this, and it's, my way will work if as well as anyone else's. I think often you can get we can be prone to, in general, and talking to just people in general, can be kind of prone to be knocked off course, get pieces of advice that way, and suddenly maybe you should just throw it all out and go that direction instead. You've got to be able to really stick to your guns, and despite sometimes what the market might be saying or whatever, you go, no, actually we've got a lot more to go on, whether it's our customers, what they're telling us, validating product in the market, those kind of things. You just got to be able to really have that kind of conviction in kind of like where you're going. But yeah, I think there's that. I mean, it goes without saying that I also, flexibility, nimbleness, the ability to pivot. I mean,
Yeah.
if I had a pound for every time I pivoted and gone into different, because of a certain thing has gone some way or another, then, I think I'd be a lot richer. But it is, I think there's definitely that. And yeah, but also, learn what to take seriously and what not to take seriously. Sometimes one can try and take certain things too seriously, like just like we're all trying this. We're all just trying our best here. We're all just trying to keep the lights on. We're all just trying to exist and continue and grow in this world. And yes, of course, there are certain things that really require need to be taken seriously. But also, if you get knocked back a bit, laugh it off, move on, and approach the next challenge with a bit of a sense of humor.
And how are you finding the market now that you're doing something in AI, for SMEs? How are you finding? Are they very receptive to it, or are they still trying to figure out what exactly it means for them?
There is, as everyone will probably largely know, a gold rush happening right in front of our eyes right now, and I've been involved in those sorts of areas before, but this is obviously different. This is a new frontier that's being forged right in front of our eyes, and there is no doubt a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. A lot of it is absolutely valid. I mean, this technology is and will transform our lives largely, we hope, for the better. But it also, there is, not all hype is good hype either. We're seeing that in some of the valuations coming out of the US and also here in the UK. And as I say, we're seeing it's a sudden sort of shift. I mean, it's extraordinary speaking to certain businesses, big businesses. They have talking of pivoting. They've just gone right. They're sort of down tools and everything else. It's like, what is our AI strategy? Where do we focus? How do we go after it? Which is obviously an exciting thing for me to be involved in. And so I'm speaking to businesses, as I say, of all shapes and sizes, largely in that kind of UK definition of a medium-sized enterprise, say from kind of like 30, 40 employees up to about 150, 200 employees, turning over, I don't know, 5 million plus, 10 million plus. That kind of bracket is who we're kind of speaking to. And the nice thing and exciting thing about this technology is because it's still, I mean, it's, in its current form, it's in its relative infancy, and what in terms of what it's and its capability, and it's evolving at such a rate that every day there's something new to offer, there's something new to explore, there's something new to kind of upskill people on, and so it's exhilarating.
Do you think you actually mentioned something interesting, which is the upskilling of personnel? Do you think that a lot of people are going to be left behind? Because that's always something that people keep on saying, oh, a lot of people are not going to be able to keep up with the times and whatnot. But I actually think it's going to end up creating a lot more opportunities and a lot more
bigger
economy. So what do you think about that?
I think absolutely. And I think we only just scratched the surface. I mean, like, we must be careful that there is a bubble broadly still, within the certain people who read certain types of news or are in certain types of industries, etc. They'll be very aware of AI, and particularly these generative tools that are getting a lot of excitement. But there is also that 80% below, whereby they're still running their business, they're still running the right direction. They've probably heard about it, they've potentially flirted with ChatGPT and things like that. But really, for them, it is totally uncharted ground. And for me, there's an interesting chunk there. Of course, you'll always have the 5% who are very kind of like aware and kind of informed of this technology. But I know 5% of businesses have started exploring implementing AI, yet 95% of people have heard about AI. So there is a huge gap between awareness and implementation. And that is a very exciting sort of, thing to be able to kind of, work with. So yeah, I think it's going to be careful not to overhype it and realize that in fact there's still lots of people who aren't fully yet au fait with it as a concept, or the other side of the spectrum, they're quite intimidated by it.
So what do you think is stopping people for actually implementing more AI solutions onto their business? Because we can get tutorials on how to do it, for example, easily, right?
Totally. I think there's a couple of things. I think some of it comes down to like emotional behavior. It comes down to trust. It comes down to kind of, credibility and making sure that, is this right for me now? Other stuff comes down to like just, the realities of life. There's always, a new and exciting technology, maybe not like this one, or a tool that, one might want to implement into their business. But there's this sort of often mañana kind of mentality. We'll do it tomorrow. We will get to it. But, we're actually really quite busy at the moment. And so it's about actually trying to, again, create an environment which is accessible and helps businesses adopt it in a way that is not daunting. It is not going to just it would be a major upheaval to their workflows and everything else, and could do it in kind of conjunction with their existing, which from our experience we're able to do, and we have been able to do. And again, just be able to, main part of this is just education, demystifying it for people. It is not put it this way, these models are extraordinary. The time it's taken, remember, this science, machine learning, has been a science since the 50s, since Alan Turing's day. I'm not downplaying the extraordinary minds that have gone into it, but when you break it down, when you realize you've got a set of input data and you've got a set of output data, and you're creating essentially an algorithm, a set of rules to be able to do stuff with that data, whether it's making prediction or generate new data from it, you can begin to break it down in a way that's a bit more bite-sized for people, and understand that what data, which is such an overused word, like what does that actually mean for people? Like, is it images? Is it text? Is it numbers? Is it videos? What is it? How does it look? How is it structured? How does it look in your business? Once you break it down for people, from my experience, it just becomes, people go, oh yeah, actually no, that's not as complicated as I was led to believe, and therefore a little bit more kind of receptive.
I was just about to ask something regarding breaking down barriers, which is, in all the businesses you build, I'm sure there was many stages where you actually had to break down mental barriers that people might have towards your business, saying this is never going to be successful. Maybe it was the ice cream business, maybe it was the nightclub business, now the AI business. So is there any tips or tricks you can give to fellow entrepreneurs listening in and say, hey, this is how you break down the problem, this is how you explain the solution?
It's a great point, and you're right. We'll always come across sort of stigma or the status quo. Many people are inherently small c conservative. They don't necessarily like, abundant and fast change, which is what we're experiencing right now. I think you've got to, at every single step of the journey, put the customer or the consumer first. If that be it a business, the key stakeholders, really bringing them along on the journey. And it comes down to precisely what I just said. Like, it's a combination of putting a core foundation in place from a business perspective that gives you credibility from the onset. I do think sometimes sweat the small stuff, sweat the detail, because if it is in the early stages, make sure you do dot those I's, cross those T's in respect to putting the foundations in place, because it will build for something so much bigger. And I think will help you bring your customer, be it a business, be it a consumer, along the journey with you more easily. And as I say, I think making sure that you've always got to look at how is it useful? How is it delivering value? Is it a nice to have? How do you turn a nice to have into a must have? And I think when you can do that, people will put aside their prejudices, and they'll give you a chance.
Now, like, I'm sure when in your career you've had some dark moments, right? There's always periods of more uncertainty, more instability. How do you deal with it?
Various different ways. There are some like physical things I do, which is walking. I'm a big walker. I live not far from the river in Hammersmith, and if I just need to take a breath and a break, a walk down the river is often the best and most soothing kind of reset that I can do. It's a form of kind of meditation. Then more kind of like behaviorally, otherwise, I have a strong group of mentors and friends that I can speak to and that I lean into. I think we are only kind of as good and strong as the sum of our parts, and making sure that you do have a strong network in place to be able to speak and get advice. I'm going this alone a bit. I've got some great people on board, but I'm a sole founder in respect to Passion Lab. But behind the scenes, there's lots of people actually there along the journey with me. So I think making sure that you've got you take some time for yourself, whether it's exercise or walk down the river, and also you surround yourself by some great people, because at that point the rest does fall into place.
Who inspired you to start this? Because obviously, you didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to launch a business. You always had some type of role model, I'm assuming. So who's this role model?
There have been various role models in my life at different stages. True, albeit cliched. My father was a self-starter, and was very kind of entrepreneurial in that respect. So I think there's definitely elements of that there. I think, but also there was a sort of personal conviction of like I believe we are there may be a higher power, but we're on this earth once, and we need to make sure that we really make a difference. And I don't want to waste a day, and I don't want to waste a minute. And if that means forging something new, creating a new business, creating something, adding value, changing the landscape in some form or another, that is, for me, empowering.
It's quite powerful. Now, when you're in sales, you often come across people who end up, I'm not going to say making you lose your time, but they end up just stalling. So how do you manage that? How do you manage that anxiety of waiting for someone to say yes or no, and like, come on, just give me a reply. I need this reply for business to move forward.
So my sales approach has shifted. It's been very fluid. It's dependent, obviously, what I'm selling, but the skill sets are very transferable. Yeah. And there's a lot of commercial crossover over what I've actually done, believe it or not. Again, it comes back to that value add, speed to value. I think making sure that you are approaching it in a way that you need to understand what it is the buyer in any respect is how they operate. What's their rhythm? What's their working rhythm? Classic. Don't go chasing people on a Monday morning. That's for sure. Make sure your timing is on point. Make sure that way you structure, whether it's an email or nowadays, frankly, people selling over new tools like Loom videos and things like that. I think we're selling in different ways. And you're I mean, on one side you're selling, but you're also, remember, you've got to just talk to the benefits. You've got to, the classic sort of feature advantage benefit trifecta. Make sure that you're always talking to the benefits. You're not trying to get away. You're trying to get away from that. Just sort of, you're selling a feature. You're selling a life-changing experience, a life-changing, moment, whatever it might be. It's going to deliver real value. And also, don't stop knocking either. Don't take the foot off the accelerator either. I mean, strike while the iron's hot. If people are keen, people can get distracted also very easily too. So make sure you don't let time get in the way of a good deal.
So from the knowledge you have right now, what advice would you give yourself 10 years ago? From what you've learned in your journey, what would you tell yourself?
It's a good question. What would I do? What would I just get going. Just keep getting moving. Because often, and I've done this in the past, I did this very recently, in fact. I spent a long time spending hours, days, in fact, strategizing and planning the perfect, doing all the market research and doing all the consumer and company research and finding my, the ICP and honing in on that. But really, it was all sort of theoretical because I just, until I got going, until I started trading and I got my first few customers, then so much became clearer. I mean, so much to the extent that, in fact, and I remember about 3 months ago, just about before we got Passion Lab really moving, I said to a good friend of mine, and he, what do you think the next step is? And he just said, Tom, you're making the classic error. You're trying to steer a parked car. Just get going, and you'll be able to move and pivot and all the rest of it. And that's definitely been true. So don't think too hard, just get going, and a lot will become clear.
Now, I've noticed on your journey, you went in and out of university. How important do you think education is for an entrepreneur overall?
So I think it gives you it's a great question, that actually, because I would say one thing I probably would have done possibly differently is, after my bachelor's, gone on and done something, a little bit more kind of concrete straight afterwards. As it was, I went straight into kind of business. I intentionally made that decision at the end of when I left Auto to go and really cement some of my formative education, give myself some of that structure that I'd been, missing. I considered an MBA, couldn't make the numbers work, and frankly, had spent the last 10 years doing a life MBA. So I wanted to just basically identify the gaps in my knowledge and try and plug them. And that's why these 3-month executive management programs, nano degrees, people call them different things, are actually really useful, because if you know yourself best, you could take a kind of holistic view of where my knowledge is in a specific area. And then there's invariably a course out there, whether it's a Coursera course or there's something online or there's a university degree or something like that you can kind of actually hone in and unplug that. And it gives you just that structure of critical thought, which you don't often necessarily always get when you're just in fast-paced, business mode.
How do you deal with the fine balance between being confident to launch a business, but then not being too arrogant to listen to what people are saying and actually take that on board as valuable feedback? How do you manage that balance?
That's a good question. make sure you do, you're listening to feedback, you listen to others, and know that you don't always know best. I don't want to contradict what I said earlier about having strong conviction. I think that's still important, and making sure that, when all's said and done, that whatever decision you take, you back yourself. But to reach that decision, definitely lean into your customer feedback, lean into your investors' feedback. Some of the people on my cap table have got 40, 50 years of experience under their belt. I don't want to be naive just to say that, they don't know what they're talking about. I'll always lean into to great minds. It's just about at what point do you just stand up and, push forward.
Was it hard getting investment for your latest business?
Not so much, not for this. I mean, I didn't raise a huge amount in the grand scheme of things. I needed just enough to get the engine moving, and sort of fuel, prime the pump, so to speak. So I raised a sort of, friends and family round, and at that stage when you're kind of pre-revenue, they're ultimately backing you. You have the best pitch deck and idea in the world, but really they're backing me. So in that sense, it's flattering, but it's also quite pressurizing. And so we raised the cash, and I think for any successive funding rounds, things will look a lot more different. But there's capital out there. There is capital out there for the right product and the right idea. And as long as it's packaged up in the right way, and you've got a great team around you, and there's a strong, founder market fit and product market fit, etc., then you're onto something.
So for anyone raising, they'll need to have a great product market fit, a great team, and then they're good to be invested in, you'd say.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, you've got to, again, it's like selling anything. You just got to it's the resilience there to keep knocking, keep looking in the right places, keep looking under every single rock. But there's cash out there, and for the right idea, and obviously around the world of AI, people are bending over backwards.
What does the future look? Sorry.
And the only thing to add to that is that, the UK, again, maybe not to the same extent as the US in terms of people's risk appetite, but there are some good schemes in place, and people will be aware of, like, the SEIS and EIS schemes to help encourage investors. And I think, and as well as the grants that are out there, like Innovate, which I've had experience with in the past, we have got there are other areas and ways of raising money, and it's not just equity finance. There's also some, Virgin Startup Club and things like that. They're all very helpful for just getting things off the ground with some early seed capital.
So what does the future look like for you?
Future looks like bedding and some really in those strong foundations, as I mentioned, for the Passion Lab, making sure that we've got a really strong base in which to grow from in 2025. And we are at the moment a lab building different businesses for different problems. But gradually, I will want to focus in on one or two core areas, and who knows, in the future, productize into those areas to really kind of like generate some serious scale into the future. But I think every day is a school day, and every day is a new day. So we just got to give it our best shot and see which way we take, which direction we head in.
Tom, if people want to reach out to you, how can you do so?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. That would be their best bet. I'm increasingly vocal on LinkedIn, and I think it's a great platform. So please send me a DM me or connect with me on LinkedIn. Tom Lorimer. You'll see building cutting edge AI tools and solutions is what my title says. You can read into that.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate the time in our conversation.
Not at all. Thank you, Ricardo. Take care.
All right. So that was it.